Coming up today, Korea's National Assembly resumes regular parliamentary activities after the main opposition calls off its boycott. A re-vote on revisions to the Assembly law will take place next Monday. Greece defaults on its $1.8 billion loan repayment to the IMF after an 11th hour attempt to agree a new rescue deal fails. Plus, for the first time ever, a Korean candidate has been selected to head the United Nations maritime body. Lim Ki-tack's four-year term will begin next year. Stay tuned for these stories and more. Hello, it's noon on Wednesday, the 1st of July. You're tuned into our midday newscast here on Arirang TV. Thank you for joining us. I'm Mark Broome. We start at the National Assembly, and normal business has resumed after the main opposition party boycotted Parliament in response to President Park Geun-hye's vetoing of disputed revisions to the Assembly law last week. A number of standing committees are deliberating the legality and wording of bills before they, along with the controversial revisions, can be put to a full Assembly vote next Monday. The opposition party ended its boycott after National Assembly Speaker Jung Lee-hwa said he would put the revisions to a second vote. However, the ruling party, which holds a majority in Parliament, will not vote on the revisions, and the bill will most likely be scrapped. The rival parties are cooperating on swiftly passing bills to enhance Korea's response to new infectious diseases like MERS and others to revitalise the ailing economy. The government and the ruling Saenuri party have decided to seek support for a supplementary budget bill to help ease the economic fallout from the MERS outbreak and a nationwide drought. Korea's Finance Minister Choi Kyung-hwan told reporters on Wednesday that his ministry will submit the bill by next Monday with the hope of seeing it passed by July 20th. Last week, the Finance Ministry announced plans to inject more than 15 trillion won, that's roughly $13.6 billion into the economy. Now to the latest regarding the outbreak of Middle East respiratory syndrome here in Korea, and the worst seems to be behind us now. No new cases have been reported in 4 days, and the Health Ministry says this may indicate the outbreak is abating. The number of people diagnosed with the MERS virus has stayed the same since Saturday at 182. There were also no additional deaths overnight, with the death toll remaining at 33. Of those who have been diagnosed, 2 more people have been discharged from hospital, taking the number of fully recovered patients now to 97. 52 patients remain in hospital, with 12 in unstable conditions. Now, the Health Ministry says Korea is still far from declaring an end to the outbreak, as the country still has over 2,400 suspected cases. It's official. Greece has defaulted on its almost $1.8 billion loan payment to the International Monetary Fund after Eurozone ministers refused to extend its bailout programme. Athens is now seeking a new bailout scheme, but that too is highly unlikely to be accepted by its international creditors. Han Da-eun reports.
Last-minute talks were no use in saving Greece from defaulting on its debt. The European Commission, one of the troubled nation's 3 creditors, along with the European Central Bank and the International Monetary Fund, urged Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras to accept the bailout terms. But Tsipras responded with a counter-proposal at the last minute, asking for a short-term extension of the bailout program that also involves debt restructuring. Eurozone ministers held an emergency teleconference to assess the new proposal, but their final answer was a no. With the bailout program's expiration, Greece officially defaulted on its $1.7 billion payment to the IMF, becoming the first developed nation to miss a loan payment to the financial watchdog. Greece's credit ratings were slashed to junk status, with Standard & Poor's downgrading its sovereign rating to triple-C and Fitch cutting credit ratings on 4 Greek banks 4 notches to restricted default. The IMF, for its part, didn't use the term default and instead said that Greece is now in arrears and can only receive IMF financing once the arrears are cleared. Meanwhile, Athens is pushing for a separate €29.1 billion aid program, a proposal that is expected to be discussed by the Eurozone ministers on Wednesday. But it's likely to be tough going as Germany, Greece's biggest creditor nation, has said it'll not consider a third bailout until after Athens' critical referendum on the bailout terms that's slated for Sunday. 한다은, Arirang News.
Now, Greece's failure to repay the IMF on time is forecast to send global markets on another wild ride over the next few days and weeks. Despite the uncertainty in Europe, though, Korean stocks appear to have shrugged off the crisis thus far, at least. As of 11:45 a.m. today, Korea's benchmark Kospi was trading at 2,092. That's up 19 points or 0.9% from Tuesday's close. There was volatile trading on Wall Street on Tuesday, but with investors hanging on to the hope a last-minute deal could be reached, the Dow Jones Industrial Average, the S&P 500 and the Nasdaq all closed slightly higher. Analysts say Wednesday will likely be a rough day for the euro and European stock markets as a result of the default. The United States is set to announce it has reached an agreement with Cuba to reopen embassies in each other's capital, but the normalization of diplomatic relations is expected to take some time, since the two sides still have a number of issues to settle. Hwang Sang-hee reports.
U.S. President Barack Obama is set to announce on Wednesday that the United States and Cuba will reopen embassies in their respective countries. Citing a senior official, the Associated Press reported Tuesday that Obama will make the announcement at the White House at 11 a.m. local time. A similar announcement is likely to be made by the Cuban government. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry will travel to Havana later this month for a flag-raising ceremony to reopen the American embassy. The historic step between the longtime foes follows a December 17th announcement that they would move to restore relations. This was followed by a summit between Obama and his Cuban counterpart Raul Castro in Panama in April. And since then, the two sides have been negotiating the re-establishment of embassies in Havana and Washington. The U.S. cut off diplomatic relations with Cuba in 1961 after Fidel Castro's revolution. But while the opening of embassies marks a milestone in improving U.S.-Cuba relations, problems remain. They include talks on human rights and possible cooperation on law enforcement, including the touchy subject of U.S. fugitives sheltering in the Cuban capital. Hwang Sang-hee, Arirang News.
Now, for the first time ever, a Korean candidate has been elected to head the International Maritime Organization. The newly appointed Secretary General says he plans to expand Korea's role in the international maritime realm. Our Son Jung-in tells us about Lim Ki-tack's career and his decades-long time in the industry.
The decision was made after a fifth round of voting at the International Maritime Organization's headquarters in London. Lim Ki-tack, currently president of the Busan Port Authority in Korea, was elected as the next Secretary General of the UN body responsible for improving maritime safety around the world. He beat out 5 other candidates from Denmark, Cyprus, Russia, Kenya, and the Philippines. Im said he will try and foster healthy growth in the marine industry while building up Korea's global reputation in the field.
I'll do my job as a middleman so that Korea and the world can work together on maritime policies.
Im is no stranger to the organization. He started attending IMO meetings as part of Korean delegations from 1986, actively participating in maritime safety and environmental protection issues. A graduate in nautical science, he also served a 3-year tenure as Korea's deputy permanent representative to the body from 2006. He is the first Korean to head a United Nations agency since former Director General of the World Health Organization Lee Jong-wook served his term between 2003 and 2006. Im will assume his 4-year post from January 1st next year, replacing the incumbent Secretary General Koji Sekimizu from Japan. The decision of the Council will be submitted to the IMO Assembly in November for final approval. 손정인, Arirang News.
A Seoul court has rejected a US hedge fund's request to block the merger of two Samsung Group units, giving the Korean conglomerate the momentum it needs to proceed with the deal. Samsung C&T, the group's construction and trade unit, has been in a legal battle with Elliott Associates after the hedge fund opposed Chail Industries' offer to take over the builder for roughly $8 billion. Now, Elliott is Samsung C&T's third largest shareholder, with a stake of around 7.1%. The proposed merger is seen as vital for a Samsung leadership transition from Lee Kun-hee to his eldest son, Jae-yong. Foreign ownership of Korean stocks has dropped below the 30% range for the first time in nearly 4 years. According to the Korea Exchange, the value of local stocks held by foreign investors was estimated at $395 billion this as of Monday. That accounts for 29.8% of the combined capitalization of the main Kospi and secondary Kosdaq markets. The benchmark stock index Kospi has risen 8.3% this year, lagging behind the Kosdaq's 36.7% gain. The Korea Exchange attributed the decrease in foreign ownership to the tech-heavy Kosdaq outshining the main bourse, which is preferred by offshore investors. The decline also comes amid the Greek debt crisis, which turned offshore investors into net sellers in early June. Korea's exports tumbled for yet another month in June. However, as imports dropped by even more, Korea posted yet another huge monthly trade surplus. Kim Min-chi reports.
Korea's outbound shipments fell for the 6th straight month in June. According to the Trade Ministry, exports came to almost $47 billion, down 1.8% from a year ago. Imports fell 13.6% over the cited period to about $37 billion. That means the country recorded a trade surplus of about $10 billion in June, extending its consecutive surplus run to 41 months. However, what's noteworthy is that the June figures are a pickup from May, when exports slumped nearly 11% on year. The ministry attributed that to a rise in the number of working days last month, as well as an improvement in economic conditions, including a slight pickup in global oil prices. Exports had been on a downward trend due to low crude oil prices, as well as a weak Japanese yen, which has eroded Korea's price competitiveness on the international market. Exports to the U.S. played a major role in the jump, with shipments rising about 11%. Shipments to China, Korea's biggest trading partner, edged up about 1%, while shipments to Japan plunged almost 13%. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
Korea's consumer prices grew less than 1% for the 7th straight month in June, adding to concerns about deflation. A report by Statistics Korea on Wednesday said the consumer price index rose 0.7% last month from the previous year. The agency attributed the low growth to weak international crude oil prices and the lowering of utility prices like gas, water and electricity. The latest figure is still well below the central bank's annual inflation target band of 2.5% to 3.5%. It's also the 6th time the index has fallen into this range since the agency started collecting data in 1995. South Korea has selected Airbus as its supplier of in-flight refueling tankers. The high-profile deal is part of a plan to boost the country's air force capabilities amid rising tensions in the region, including the threat posed by North Korea. Connie Kim reports.
Korea decided to buy 4 Airbus A330 MRTTs as its aerial refueling tanker in a deal worth 1.5 trillion won, or $1.3 billion, edging out 2 rival competitors. Seoul's Defense Acquisition Program Administration said Tuesday that the Airbus scored high in many categories, including fueling capability.
The Airbus's A330 MRTT has performed excellently in long-distance operational missions with long-haul and high fuel capacities.
Air-to-air refueling, transporting passengers and military personnel, and aerial medical evacuation missions are just some of the capabilities the selected Airbus aircraft boasts. Also known as the flying gas station, the tankers can refuel fighter jets and other warplanes during flight. And under the deal, Korea will get the planes between 2018 and 2019. Airbus's A330 MRTT, Boeing's KC-46, and Israel Aerospace Industries' B767 MMTT competed in the $1 billion bid. And up until the final decision on Tuesday, Airbus and Boeing were neck and neck. But the European jets prevailed. They can carry up to 111 tons of fuel, compared to Boeing's 96 tons, and can also transport up to 300 soldiers, which is about 3 times more than the American aircraft.
Although the Airbus tanker comes with a high maintenance cost, it will enable Korea's Air Force to expand its radius of operations to Korea's easternmost island of Dokdo, to the southernmost island of Yeodo, and to the northern part of the Korean peninsula. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
Well, those are the stories we've been following on this Wednesday lunchtime here in Seoul. For more of the latest, don't forget to check out our website, arirang.co.kr/news, and do download our smartphone application for all the latest news and programmes. Have a wonderful day. Goodbye.